Work pressures, family responsibilities, and unexpected events tested their patience and resilience. Yet, each obstacle became an opportunity to demonstrate care and trust. They learned to communicate openly, to forgive small misunderstandings, and to celebrate the little victories along the way. Through these experiences, their love matured, transforming from infatuation into a steady, reliable connection. One evening, the man invited her to his apartment for dinner. He had prepared a simple meal, but the effort and thoughtfulness were clear. They sat at a small table, sharing food, conversation, and quiet laughter. The warmth of the room and the soft candlelight created an intimacy that deepened their emotional connection. After dinner, they moved to the living room, sitting close together on a couch. He spoke about his hopes for the future, the dreams he wanted to pursue, and the life he wished to build. She shared her own aspirations, her desire to grow, and the life she imagined for herself and her sibling. In this quiet, personal space, they realized that their goals and values aligned. Strengthening their sense of partnership, in the days that followed, their bond continued to deepen. The man often surprised her with small gestures, bringing flowers, leaving notes, or simply sending messages to check on her day. She responded with equal care, finding joy in nurturing the connection they shared. Their relationship became a source of comfort, stability, and happiness in a world that often felt unpredictable. One cold evening, they attended a small community event where local artists showcased their work. They wandered through the exhibits, discussing the art and sharing their thoughts. At one point, the man stopped and looked at her, serious expression on his face. "There's something I want you to know," he said. "Being with you has changed me. I feel stronger, more hopeful, and more alive. I don't want to imagine life without you in it." She felt a surge of emotion, tears welling in her eyes. "I feel the same," she whispered. "You've become such an important part of my life. I can't imagine it without you either." They held each other's gaze, the weight of their words settling between them. It was a moment of clarity, a recognition that their love had grown into something enduring, resilient, and profoundly meaningful. As the evening drew to a close, they walked home together through the snow-covered streets. The city was quiet, and the only sounds were their footsteps and the soft whisper of the wind. They held hands, a simple gesture that carried the depth of their feelings. Each step reinforced the understanding that love was not just a feeling, but a choice and ongoing commitment to care, support, and grow together. Back at the bookstore the next day, she reflected on the journey they had shared, from the chance meeting in the rain to the quiet, intimate moments of support and understanding. Their relationship had evolved in a way that neither had anticipated, but both cherished deeply. She realized that love was not always about dramatic moments or perfect timing. It was about presence, patience, and the willingness to share life's ordinary and extraordinary moments with someone who truly cared. And for the man, each day spent with her reinforced the truth he had begun to understand. Love was not about perfection or certainty. It was about embracing the journey together, supporting each other through challenges, and celebrating the quiet joys of life. With her by his side, he felt a sense of peace, hope, purpose that he had never known before. Winter continued to blanket the city, and their love grew quietly but steadily. Through shared experiences, thoughtful gestures, and moments of vulnerability, they built a connection that was deep, resilient, and meaningful. They had learned that love was not a fleeting emotion, but a commitment to be present, to nurture each other, and to face life's challenges together. And as the snow fell softly around them, they knew that their bond had become something enduring, a love that would inspire, comfort, and sustain them in the days to come. Spring arrived softly, bringing warmth and color back to the city. Flowers bloomed along the streets, and sunlight lingered longer in the evenings. The young woman and the man had shared months of moments together, small, meaningful, and quietly transformative. Their love had grown stronger through the seasons, tested and proven in ways that had brought them closer than they had imagined. One bright morning, he arrived at the bookstore with a bouquet of wild flowers, their colors bright and cheerful. She looked up from arranging the shelves and smiled, a flutter of anticipation rising in her chest. "These are for you," he said, Offering the flowers with a gentle smile, she accepted them. The fragrance filling the air between them. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you." He watched her carefully, noticing the way her eyes lit up with the smallest gestures. He realized, once again, that love was in the details, in noticing, appreciating, and being present. They spent the morning together, walking through the city's blooming parks, sharing stories and laughter. The sunlight warmed them, but it was the bond between them that filled their hearts with true warmth. As spring continued, life brought new experiences and small adventures. They attended outdoor concerts, explored quiet neighborhoods, and discovered little cafes that served the perfect pastries. Each moment was an opportunity to learn more about each other, to share joy, and to support one another. Their connection was no longer tentative. It was steady, reliable, and deeply fulfilling. One afternoon, they sat by the river, the gentle sound of flowing water providing a serene backdrop. The man turned to her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I've been thinking a lot about how we met," he said. "I never expected that a rainy afternoon in a bookstore would change my life. But meeting you, it has changed everything," she smiled, feeling the truth of his words resonate within her. "I feel the same," she said. "Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the most important connections. You've become a part of my life I can't imagine living without." They sat in silence for a while, holding hands, letting the quiet of the river and the warmth of their presence speak for itself. It was a comfortable, natural intimacy, shared understanding that their bond had become something profound and lasting as the days passed. The man faced new challenges at work. A demanding project tested his skills, patience, and resilience. She supported him quietly, offering encouragement, sharing small comforts, and reminding him of his strengths. In turn, he remained attentive to her needs, helping her with tasks, listening when she needed to talk, and celebrating her successes. Their love had become a partnership, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and unwavering support. One evening, after a long day, he invited her to a small rooftop terrace overlooking the city. The sky was painted with the soft colors of sunset, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. He had set up a small table with a simple dinner. Candles flickering softly, they shared the meal quietly, talking about dreams, plans, and the journey they had shared so far. Then, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he reached for her hand, holding it gently. "There's something I want to tell you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "These past months with you have been incredible. You've taught me patience, trust, and what it really means to care for someone. I want to keep learning, growing, and facing life with you. I want us to be together, fully, with no hesitation." Her eyes filled with tears, her heart swelling with joy. "I feel the same," she whispered. "I want to share life with you, through every challenge, every joy, every ordinary and extraordinary moment. I want us to be together." They embraced, the city lights twinkling around them, the warmth of their love filling the space. It was a culmination of months of shared experiences, trust, and growing understanding. The love they had nurtured was no longer tentative or uncertain. It was real, enduring, and ready to face the future together. In the following weeks, they began to plan for a future that included each other. They discussed hopes, dreams, and practicalities, always with the awareness that love was not just a feeling, but a commitment to grow together. Each decision, each plan, was made with consideration, care, and mutual respect. Their families and friends noticed the change in both of them, the quiet confidence, the steady happiness, the way they supported and uplifted each other. It was a love that inspired, a love that was visible, not just in words, but in actions, in the consistency and sincerity of their care. One sunny afternoon, they revisited the bookstore where it all began. They walked through the familiar aisles, touching the spines of books that had once offered solace and imagination. They paused by the window where they first met, sharing a quiet smile, a look that carried all the unspoken understanding and affection that had grown between them. "I never imagined that day would lead us here," he said softly, "but I'm grateful for it every single moment." She nodded, feeling the same gratitude. It was the beginning of something wonderful. And now, it's just the start of our journey together. The city around them buzzed with life, but they felt a sense of calm and certainty. They knew that love was not always easy, not always predictable, but it was worth believing in. Through chance encounters, patient understanding, and unwavering care, they had discovered something rare and beautiful. The rain had been falling steadily for hours, turning the streets into shiny rivers of light from the street lamps. People rushed by, umbrellas held high, trying to avoid the chill that seeped through their coats. Among them was a young woman who worked at a small, cozy bookstore tucked into a quiet corner of the city. She moved with a calm grace, holding her own small umbrella, the fabric slightly tattered at the edges. Rain had always brought her a sense of peace, even if it also brought crowds and chaos. She unlocked the store, the familiar scent of old books and polished wood greeting her like an old friend. The bells above the door jingled softly as she stepped inside, shaking off the raindrops from her coat. She liked this time of day. Most of the customers had left, or were still hurrying through the streets, so the bookstore felt like her little sanctuary. Shelves stood tall around her, filled with stories waiting to be discovered. She ran her fingers along the spines, feeling the smooth and textured covers under her touch. There was something comforting about the permanence of books, something that always made her believe in possibilities. Even if love had been a disappointment so far, she had spent many days here, surrounded by characters who had braved storms, fallen in love, lost hope, and found it again. In a way, she felt that their stories had seeped into her, teaching her patience and hope. She believed in love, even if life hadn't been particularly kind to her heart. She had tried once, twice, maybe more, but each time the relationships faded like mist in the morning. Still, she never stopped believing that the right person could appear when she least expected it, just as she was arranging a new display of novels near the window. The door opened with a sudden rush of wind and rain. She looked up instinctively. Standing there, dripping wet and slightly disheveled, was a young man. His dark hair clung to his forehead and his coat was soaked, revealing the crisp white shirt underneath. He looked around, startled to find the store so quiet, and then smiled faintly, almost sheepishly. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a little hurried. "Is this place open?" "Yes," she replied with a small smile, gesturing for him to come in. "You're welcome to stay until the rain stops." He stepped inside, and the warmth of the bookstore hit him immediately. It smelled of paper, coffee from the nearby cafe, and something faintly sweet from the polished wood. He shook off his coat as best as he could and removed his shoes, leaving small puddles on the mat, but she didn't mind. "Thanks," he said, finally relaxing a little. "It's been one of those days." She nodded, sensing the weight behind his words, but didn't press. Instead, she smiled politely and went back to the display she was arranging. The silence was comfortable, broken only by the soft patter of rain against the windows and the occasional thump of a book falling from a shelf as he adjusted himself. He wandered slowly through the store, his eyes scanning the titles as if searching for something specific. He stopped at a shelf full of travel books, picking one up and flipping through it. He seemed thoughtful, lost in a world far from the gray rain outside. She watched him for a moment, noticing the slight crease between his eyebrows and the way he hummed softly under his breath as he read. Something about him drew her attention, not because he was particularly striking, but because he seemed genuine, unpretentious, and real in a way that was rare. Finally, he spoke, breaking her quiet contemplation. "Do you think people ever find what they're looking for by accident?" She blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" He closed the book gently and looked at her, his eyes meeting hers. "I mean, sometimes we search for something, and we end up somewhere completely different. And somehow, that turns out to be exactly what we needed." She considered this. It was the kind of question that didn't have an easy answer, but it made her heart beat a little faster. She could feel the sincerity in his voice. "I guess it depends," she said slowly. "Sometimes what we find isn't exactly what we were looking for, but it can still be important." He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I like that. Important. not always what we want, but what we need. They lingered in that moment, the sound of rain wrapping around them, creating a small world inside the bookstore that felt separate from the chaos outside. She found herself wondering about him, who he was, what had brought him here, and why his presence felt strangely comforting. He, on the other hand, seemed equally curious, his gaze softening each time he looked at her. Time passed unnoticed. The rain slowed, and a few rays of sunlight began to pierce through the gray clouds, casting a golden glow across the store. He set the book back on the shelf and turned to her. "I should probably be going." "I didn't mean to stay so long," she smiled, though a part of her wished he wouldn't leave. "You're always welcome," she said. "Even if it's just to escape the rain," he chuckled softly. "I might take you up on that sometime." Before he left, he paused as if hesitating, then reached into his pocket and scribbled something on a small piece of paper. He handed it to her. "Here, just in case." She looked at it and saw his number, written neatly with a small note that said, "For another accidental encounter." She laughed softly, the sound mingling with the fading rain. "I'll hold you to that," she said. He smiled warmly, nodded, and stepped out into the streets. She watched him disappear into the fading drizzle, feeling a flutter of something she hadn't felt in a long time: anticipation, curiosity, and a spark of hope. She tucked the paper into her pocket and went back to arranging books, but her mind kept drifting to the moment, to the strange and wonderful feeling of meeting someone who seemed like he might change everything. For the rest of the afternoon, she moved through the store with a lightness in her step. Every time she glanced at the window, she imagined him returning, smiling at her in that easy, unassuming way. She tried to focus on her work, but thoughts of their conversation lingered, warming her heart. Something about him felt different. It wasn't just the chance meeting, it was the way he had listened, the way he had spoken, the way the world outside seemed to pause for a moment while he was there. As evening approached, the store grew quiet again. She lit a small lamp on the counter, casting a soft glow over the books and shelves. She arranged a few more novels, placing them in a neat stack near the door. Her thoughts returned to the man and the strange, inexplicable connection they had shared in such a short time. She wondered if he felt it too, or if it was just her imagination. She knew one thing: that brief encounter had awakened something in her, a flicker of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. It reminded her that life was unpredictable, that moments of magic could appear when least expected. And sometimes people came into our lives not because we were searching for them, but because the universe had a way of guiding us to what we needed that night. She closed the store and walked home under the newly clearing sky. The streets glistened with leftover rain, reflecting the soft glow of streetlights and shop windows. She held the piece of paper with his number tightly in her hand, smiling to herself. Maybe this was just the beginning of something she had always believed in, but had never truly experienced in this Wariel. Unhurried and quietly beautiful. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine the possibilities. Maybe love wasn't just a story she read about in books. Maybe it was real, waiting patiently in unexpected places, ready to find her when she least expected it. And as she walked through the calm, shimmering streets, she felt a sense of anticipation that made her heart beat a little faster. A feeling that told her life had just opened a new chapter, one that might be more wonderful than she had ever dared to hope. The days that followed the rainy afternoon were busy and ordinary for the young woman. She went to the bookstore, arranged books, and smiled at familiar customers. Yet her mind often wandered back to the man who had appeared in her life so unexpectedly. She would find herself replaying their conversation. The way he had spoken with honesty, the slight smile that seemed to reach his eyes. She could not explain why, but the memory left a warmth in her chest, a quiet excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, the young man returned to his usual routines. His work as an architect kept him busy, and he was focused on projects that demanded long hours. Yet between meetings and blueprints, he found himself thinking about the bookstore, the woman who had welcomed him, and the conversation that had felt so different from any other he had had. He had never met anyone who seemed so calmly aware of the world, someone who listened without judgment. It made him curious, almost impatient to see her again. One afternoon, he decided to visit the bookstore again, though he had no particular reason. He told himself it was simply a way to escape the city's relentless pace for a few minutes. When he entered, she was at the counter, cataloging a new set of arrivals. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and the soft concentration on her face made him pause for a moment. She looked up, startled, then smiled warmly. "You're back," she said, a note of surprise and amusement in her voice. "I didn't expect to see you so soon." "I wanted to see if the rain had brought anything interesting," he replied, a playful smile on his lips, "and maybe to see you again." Her cheeks colored slightly and she laughed softly. "Well, the rain is gone, but I suppose I can offer a cup of coffee. We have a little corner for that." They moved to a small table near the window, the one with a clear view of the street outside. She poured 2 cups of coffee, the aroma filling the air between them. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the occasional footsteps of passers-by. Then, naturally, the conversation resumed, flowing as if no time had passed at all. They began talking about small things, books they liked, favorite authors, and the little quirks of the city they lived in. Yet gradually, the conversation deepened. The man shared stories about his work, the challenges of meeting deadlines, and the pressure of perfection. The woman spoke about her own life, caring for her younger sibling, balancing responsibilities with her dreams, and the hope she carried despite setbacks. They laughed at minor mistakes, exchanged opinions gently, and listened to each other with patience. There was an unspoken understanding growing between them, a connection that did not need to be rushed. Each discovered that the other carried a past that was not without pain but had also shaped the person before them. It was in these moments, these ordinary conversations, the extraordinary began to take root. Days turned into weeks, and their paths crossed more often. Sometimes it was at the bookstore, sometimes by chance on the streets, and occasionally at local events they both happened to attend. Each meeting added another layer to their understanding of each other. The man noticed the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved, and she observed the quiet determination in his movements, the way he seemed to consider his words carefully. One evening, as autumn leaves tumbled across the streets, they found themselves walking together after a local book signing. The city was painted in shades of gold and orange, the air crisped but not cold. He spoke about a new project he was planning, and she shared her thoughts about a story she had started writing. The conversation flowed naturally, weaving between dreams, disappointments, hopes, laughter. "Do you ever feel like life has a way of nudging us?" she asked, pausing to watch a leaf spiral to the ground. He looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" "Like little things happen to guide us somewhere. Or to someone," she explained. "Sometimes I think meeting people isn't always about chance. Maybe it's fate in disguise." He smiled thoughtfully, taking a moment to consider her words. "Maybe you're right," he said finally. "I've always thought I had to plan everything, control everything. But lately, I've started to wonder if letting things happen naturally could lead to something better than I imagined." She nodded, feeling a quiet understanding pass between them. It was not just words, it was a shared feeling, a recognition that both were open to the unexpected. Their friendship deepened. He would sometimes bring small gestures of thoughtfulness, a favorite book, a pastry from a nearby bakery, and she would respond with little notes, her own small gifts of appreciation. They began to rely on each other in subtle ways, seeking advice, sharing small worries, and celebrating small victories. Through these interactions, a gentle, unspoken bond formed, one that neither of them could ignore. One evening, during a cool walk by the river, they stumbled upon a street musician playing soft tunes on a violin. The music filled the quiet air, blending with the soft glow of lamps reflecting on the water. They paused, standing side by side, taking in the moment together. He glanced at her, noticing the peaceful smile on her face. "You look happy," he said quietly. "I am," she replied. "Sometimes being in the right place with the right person makes all the difference." He looked at her, feeling the truth of her words. There was a warmth that radiated from her, a calm strength that made him feel like he could finally breathe in a way he hadn't in years. He realized that in her presence, the anxieties of work, deadlines, and past heartbreaks seemed to fade. He had not expected this feeling, yet he knew he wanted to explore it further as the weeks continued. Subtle signs of deeper feelings began to appear. A lingering look, a gentle touch on the shoulder, a shared laugh that lasted a little too long. They both noticed, but neither rushed. There was a patience in their connection, a willingness to let things grow naturally rather than forcing them. They had each been hurt before, and there was an unspoken agreement to be careful, to respect the slow unfolding of trust. The young woman began to notice that her days felt brighter when he was near. Even ordinary tasks seemed lighter when she knew they might cross paths. She found herself thinking about him at unexpected times, wondering how his day had been, hoping he was happy, and smiling at the thought of their next conversation. For the man, the experience was equally profound. He had been focused on life's practicalities, always planning, always cautious. But now with her, he learned to appreciate the small moments, the fleeting happiness that could come from simple companionship. He realized that connection was not about grand gestures alone. It was about being present, attentive, and authentic. One afternoon, as they shared tea in the bookstore, a sudden downpour began outside. They looked at each other and laughed, remembering their first meeting in the rain. It was a small moment, yet it felt significant. A reminder that life had a sense of humor and timing that neither could fully predict. "I suppose the rain has a way of bringing people together," he said, smiling. She laughed softly, "Or reminding us that some meetings are meant to happen." And in that moment, they both felt it, the quiet thrill of possibility, the gentle stirrings of something that could become love. It was not a dramatic declaration or an instant connection, but a steady, unfolding awareness that their lives were intertwining in ways neither had anticipated. As evening approached, the bookstore began to empty, and they found themselves lingering at the door. The city lights glimmered through the raindrops still clinging to the windows. He handed her a small book he had picked out for her, a story he thought she would enjoy. "For you," he said simply. "Something to remind you that stories have a way of connecting people." She accepted it with a smile, feeling the warmth of his gesture. "Thank you. I'll treasure it." They stepped out together, walking briefly down the quiet street before parting ways. She held the book close, feeling a sense of anticipation she hadn't known in a long time. He walked away, a quiet happiness settling over him, knowing that life had a way of surprising even the most careful hearts. In the days that followed, their connection continued to grow. Each encounter, each shared moment, added another layer to the bond forming between them. It was not rushed, not forced, but natural, gentle, and meaningful. And with every step they began to understand that sometimes life's small twists and turns led to something far greater than they had ever imagined. Love, they realized, might not arrive with fanfare, but quietly, patiently, it could find its way to those willing to notice, to care, and to believe. As autumn deepened, the city streets became a mix of amber leaves and early evening shadows. The young woman and the man continued to meet with a quiet regularity, sometimes by chance, sometimes intentionally. Each meeting was unhurried, filled with small talk that gradually gave way to deeper conversations. They shared their dreams, their fears, and the little fragments of their past that had shaped them. There was a comfort in their connection that neither had expected, and yet it felt natural and right. One chilly evening, the man invited her to a small local gallery opening. He had discovered the event by chance and thought she might enjoy it. She agreed, curious and quietly excited, appreciating the gesture. They walked through the gallery together, examining paintings and sculptures, discussing the colors and shapes. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and thoughtful observations. At one point, they found themselves in front of a painting that depicted two people standing in the rain, hands nearly touching. She looked at him and noticed a thoughtful expression on his face. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "But it makes me think about how close people can be and still not reach each other." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes we need to be patient to let things happen in their own time. But when the connection is right, it finds a way, even through the rain." The gallery visit became a turning point. The man started opening up more about his past relationships, his disappointments, and the lessons he had learned. She listened attentively, offering understanding rather than judgment. It was a level of honesty that made their connection stronger, building trust and respect. As they walked back through the streets, their hands brushed lightly. Neither pulled away, and the small contact sent a thrill through both of them. It was subtle but meaningful, a silent acknowledgement that something more was developing. They both felt it, though neither was ready to name it yet. Over the next few weeks, the man faced a difficult project at work. Long hours and high expectations tested his patience and resolve. She noticed his stress and reached out with small gestures, messages of encouragement. A homemade pastry left on his desk, and gentle check-ins. He, in turn, became more aware of her own challenges, offering support and understanding when she needed it most. Their bond strengthened through these acts of care, revealing a depth of feeling that went beyond friendship. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner at a small neighborhood cafe, the conversation turned more personal. He spoke about his fears of failure and his struggle to balance ambition with personal happiness. She shared her own uncertainties about the future and the pressure she felt to provide for her sibling while pursuing her dreams. They listened to each other without interruption, creating a space where vulnerability felt safe. After dinner, they walked along the river, the city lights reflecting on the water's surface. The air was crisp, and their breaths formed small clouds in the cool night. He paused and looked at her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "I don't know how to say this exactly," he began, "but being with you, even in these small moments, feels different. You make everything seem clearer, more possible." She felt a rush of emotion she could hardly describe. "I feel the same way," she admitted softly. "It's like I can be myself with you, and it's not complicated or rushed." They stood there for a moment, the quiet night enveloping them, and then he reached for her hand. This time, the contact was intentional, firm, and reassuring. She held his hand without hesitation, and a sense of belonging settled over both of them. It was not a dramatic confession, but a simple, honest acknowledgement of the bond growing between them. In the following days, they became more intentional about spending time together. They shared meals, explored new parts of the city, and even attended a small music performance in the park. Each shared experience brought them closer, revealing new facets of their personalities and deepening their appreciation for one another. They laughed together, supported each other, and learned to navigate the quiet tensions that naturally arose in any growing relationship. Yet, even as their connection strengthened, moments of doubt occasionally surfaced. The man worried about his past mistakes affecting the present, while she wondered if her cautious heart might prevent her from fully embracing what was developing. They were both aware that true love required trust, patience, and the willingness to confront fears. These challenges, rather than driving them apart, became opportunities to reinforce their commitment to understanding and supporting each other. One particularly cold evening, they found themselves walking home after an unexpected snowfall. The city was quiet, covered in a soft white blanket, and the streets glimmered under the glow of streetlights. They laughed as they navigated the slippery sidewalks, helping each other along. In that simple, playful moment, the man realized how much he cherished her presence. Not just in joyful times, but in ordinary, even inconvenient circumstances. As they reached her apartment building, he hesitated at the door. "I don't want to rush anything," he said, his voice low and sincere. "But I want you to know that I care more than I can easily put into words." She looked at him, her own heart full, and smiled. "I care too. And I think it's okay to take our time, to let things grow naturally. But I want you to know that I'm here, fully present, if you are." They shared a quiet moment before partying, the snowflakes settling on their shoulders like gentle reminders of the day's magic. Each returned home with a sense of anticipation and contentment, knowing that their bond was becoming something real and enduring. The days continued with a gentle rhythm, each encounter reinforcing their connection. The man introduced her to friends from work and colleagues who noticed the positive change in him. She shared moments from her life, stories about her sibling, and small achievements that brought her joy. In every interaction, they discovered new ways to appreciate each other, learning that love was not about grand declarations, but about consistent care, empathy, and presence. One evening, the man surprised her with tickets to a quiet theater performance. They sat side by side, sharing the experience in silence, occasionally exchanging glances and smiles. It was a subtle, intimate connection, filled with unspoken understanding and shared appreciation. The performance ended, but they lingered in their seats, neither wanting the moment to end. Walking home afterward, city lights reflecting in puddles from a light rain, he stopped her on a quiet corner. "I've realized something," he said. "Being with you isn't about fixing the past or planning everything perfectly. It's about being present, enjoying the moments we have, and learning together." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "I feel the same. It's like we're discovering what love really is, not just imagining it." And in that moment, standing under the soft glow of the street lamp, they both felt a quiet certainty. Love, they realized, was not about dramatic gestures or perfect timing. It was about patience, understanding, and the willingness to grow together. Their hearts, once cautious and uncertain, now carried a shared warmth, a hope that had been nurtured through countless small, meaningful moments. As they parted for the night, they both carried the sense that this was more than just a fleeting connection. It was a bond that had been carefully nurtured, a love growing steadily, quietly, and with a depth that neither had expected, but both had longed for. And with each day, as autumn slowly gave way to winter, their connection continued to deepen, building a foundation of trust, care, and the undeniable spark of love that neither could ignore. Winter had arrived quietly, covering the city in a soft layer of frost and snow. The streets sparkled in the morning light, and the chill in the air seemed to make every small warmth more noticeable. The young woman and the man had grown closer, and their bond was becoming more visible in the way they moved, spoke, and smiled together. They had learned the subtle art of noticing the other's moods, providing comfort without words, and celebrating each small joy with genuine delight. One cold morning, the man arrived at the bookstore, his cheeks rosy from the crisp air. He carried a small package, wrapped in brown paper, tied with simple string. She looked at him curiously as he stepped inside, shaking snow from his coat. "Good morning," he said, smiling warmly. "I thought this might brighten your day." She took the package, careful not to peek too quickly. Inside was a scarf, soft and hand-knitted, in colors that seemed to suit her perfectly. She felt a lump in her throat at the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "Thank you. I'll think of you every time I wear it," he smiled, a quiet happiness in his eyes. "I wanted you to know I care in ways small and steady every day." That day, as she wrapped the scarf around her neck, she realized how deeply she had begun to trust him. Their relationship was no longer tentative or uncertain. It was a growing bond built on consistent acts of care and understanding. They spent the afternoon together, sipping tea in the bookstore, discussing books, dreams, and plans for the coming year. Not long after, the man faced a personal challenge. A family member fell ill, requiring his attention and support. He struggled to balance his responsibilities with work, and the stress began to weigh heavily on him. She noticed immediately, her heart tightening at the sight of his worry and fatigue. She offered her support, sending messages of encouragement, checking in regularly, and preparing small meals to help ease his burden. One evening, he visited her at the bookstore, exhausted but grateful for her presence. She welcomed him with a warm cup of tea and a quiet smile. They sat together in silence for a while, allowing comfort to fill the space between them. "Thank you for being here," he said softly. "I don't know what I would do without your support." She reached out, placing her hand over his. "You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here, always." That simple affirmation, spoken with sincerity and warmth, strengthened their connection even further. The man realized that love was not only about joyful moments, but also about standing together through challenges. He felt a growing admiration for her resilience, kindness, and unwavering support. Meanwhile, she discovered that her own life felt more vibrant and meaningful with him by her side. She had always carried responsibilities, but now she felt lighter, knowing she had someone who truly cared and understood. Their shared experiences, both joyful and difficult, created a bond that went beyond surface-level attraction. As winter deepened, they began to explore the city together more deliberately. They visited small cafes, tucked into quiet streets, attended intimate concerts, and took walks along frozen riverbanks. Each experience revealed new layers of understanding, new ways to support and enjoy each other's company. They discovered that love was not always about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was in the everyday moments. The shared laughter, the comfort of knowing someone was there. One afternoon, while walking through a snowy park, the man paused and looked at her seriously. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "about how life changes when someone becomes truly important to you. You've become very important to me." Her heart fluttered, and she felt a mix of surprise and joy. "I feel the same way," she admitted softly. "I didn't expect this, but I can't deny it." "You mean a lot to me, too," they continued walking, hands brushing lightly, smiles lingering on their faces. The snow fell around them, soft and quiet, creating a serene backdrop for their growing love. It was a moment that felt suspended in time, a shared understanding that their bond was becoming something real, lasting, and deeply meaningful. As winter progressed, they faced more challenges together. As they stepped outside, hand in hand, the sunlight catching in their hair and eyes, they felt a quiet joy. Love had found them not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in small moments, shared experiences, and the consistent choice to care for each other. They understood that true love was a journey, a continuous unfolding, and that it required patience, understanding, and faith in one another. And as they walked together, ready to face the world side by side, they carried with them the knowledge that love was real, enduring, and worth believing in. Their story, which began with a chance encounter on a rainy day, had grown into a testament to the power of patience, trust, and the simple, profound joy of being present for each other. It was a love that would inspire them, sustain them, and grow with them through every season, every challenge, and every ordinary, beautiful day that lay ahead. Life continued to unfold for the young woman and the man, each day bringing new experiences and challenges that they faced together. By now, their love was no longer new or uncertain. It had become a steady presence, a comforting force that guided their decisions and strengthened their spirits. They had learned that true love was not just about fleeting moments of joy, but about building a foundation that could withstand life's ups and downs. One bright morning, the man suggested they take a short trip outside the city to a quiet village by the river. The idea was spontaneous, a break from routine. It promised simple pleasures, fresh air, walks through fields, and evenings spent by the fireplace. She agreed eagerly, feeling the excitement of a shared adventure and the calm reassurance of being with someone she trusted deeply. They set out early, the city slowly fading behind them as the car drove through winding roads and open landscapes. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and the distant aroma of freshly turned soil. They spoke little at first, content to let the scenery pass by, enjoying the quiet intimacy of shared presence. Eventually, conversation flowed naturally, from memories of childhood to hopes for the future. They discovered new layers of understanding about each other, the fears that still lingered, the dreams that had yet to be realized, and the subtle ways they had grown together over time. Upon reaching the village, they found a small cottage surrounded by meadows and a river that reflected the sky's soft hues. It was simple but charming, with a fireplace, a small kitchen, and large windows that allowed sunlight to pour in. They unpacked their belongings and wandered outside, the grass soft under their feet and the gentle river murmur creating a peaceful soundtrack. For the next few days, they immersed themselves in the simplicity of the village life. They cooked together, took long walks along the riverbank, and explored nearby woods. Each shared experience was filled with laughter, curiosity, and moments of reflection. They took turns pointing out small wonders: a rare bird, a cluster of wildflowers, a pattern in the clouds. The world felt larger and more vivid when shared between them. each moment an opportunity to connect and appreciate life together. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat by the river, wrapped in a blanket, and watched the water flow quietly. The man turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about how far we've come," he said softly. "From that first rainy day in the bookstore to now, every step has been unexpected but perfect. I can't imagine my life without you," she smiled, feeling the warmth of his words deep in her heart. "I feel the same. It's like every small moment, every chance meeting, has led us to this. I've learned so much about love because of you." They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the gentle ripple of the river. In that quiet, they both realized that love was not just about happiness or excitement. It was about presence, support, and growing together. They had learned to face life's challenges side by side. Each trial had made their bond stronger. The next morning, they woke to the soft sound of birdsong. The air was cool but inviting, filled with the promise of a new day. They decided to take a walk through a nearby forest, following a narrow trail that led to a hidden waterfall. The path was dotted with fallen leaves and small wildflowers, and sunlight filtered through the branches, casting playful patterns on the ground. As they reached the waterfall, the sight took their breath away. Water cascaded down into a crystal-clear pool, the sound both powerful and soothing. They stood together, holding hands, letting the mist from the falls touch their faces. In that moment, words were unnecessary. The beauty of the place, combined with their shared presence, spoke volumes about their connection. Over the course of the day, they explored more of the village and surrounding countryside, discovering quiet corners, hidden streams, and fields filled with wildflowers. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet conversations that revealed even deeper understanding and empathy for one another. Every experience, no matter how small, felt amplified because it was shared between them. In the evenings, they returned to the cottage, preparing simple meals together, and then settled by the fireplace. They talked about their dreams and aspirations, the lives they wanted to build, and the values they held dear. These conversations were filled with honesty and vulnerability, reinforcing the trust that had become the cornerstone of their relationship. They realized that love was not about perfection, but about accepting and supporting each other fully. With all their flaws and strengths, one particularly quiet evening, as the snow from the previous season had completely melted, leaving the world fresh and green, the man shared a letter he had written but had hesitated to send. It was a reflection on their journey, the way their lives had intertwined, and his deep feelings for her. She listened, moved by his words, and then took his hand. "I feel the same way," she said softly. "I never expected love to be like this, steady and deep, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. You've become my partner, my support, and my best friend." They embraced, feeling the strength of their connection and the reassurance that they were building something lasting. The days passed with the same quiet joy and shared experiences, a mixture of adventure, reflection, and care. They laughed together, supported each other through minor challenges, and found new ways to appreciate the ordinary moments that often went unnoticed in everyday life. On the last day of their trip, they sat by the river, watching the sunset. The sky was a painting of warm colors, and the water reflected the hues perfectly. They held hands, content in the silence, knowing that their love had reached a level of understanding and trust that would carry them forward. They spoke about returning to the city, about continuing their lives with renewed commitment to each other, and about facing whatever challenges the future might bring. Together as they drove back, the city skyline gradually appearing in the distance, they felt a sense of peace and anticipation. They knew that love was a journey, a continuous effort to be present, understanding, and supportive. They had experienced the highs and lows, the ordinary and extraordinary moments, and had emerged with a bond that was strong, resilient, and deeply meaningful. The young woman reflected on how a chance encounter on a rainy afternoon had blossomed into a love that was patient, nurturing, and real. The man realized that life's unexpected moments often led to the most important connections. Together, They understood that love was not just about emotion, it was about choice. Care and commitment continuously demonstrated through small, meaningful actions by the time they returned to their routines in the city. Their relationship had become a living testament to the power of patience, understanding, and belief in love. Every moment spent together, whether an adventure or quiet reflection, strengthened the foundation of their bond. They carried the lessons of their time away, the importance of presence, empathy, and shared joy into their daily lives, making each day richer and more meaningful. And so, life went on, filled with love that was real, enduring, and deeply human. They continued to face challenges, celebrate joys, and grow together, understanding that love was not a destination, but a journey. Through every season, every small gesture, and every shared experience, they knew that believing in love had been worth every moment, and that their connection would continue to inspire, nurture, and sustain them in the years to come.